Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Glittering Bell Jar. The Glittering Bell Jar is a Harry Potter podcast where we read the Harry Potter series backward. First season, we started with, of course, the Deathly Hallows, and now we are in season 2, reading the Half-Blood Prince. I am here, as always, with my incredible co-host, Valerie. Valerie, how are you?
I'm good. I'm actually in an airplane right now. I know it doesn't look
What?
like it because I'm in my office, but I'm in an airplane using the power of technology to make sure that you don't miss, dear listener, a single episode of this podcast. I, as mentioned in a previous episode, had 2 trips this month as we decided to release an entire month of daily episodes at the same time I had about 20 days of travel. So this is beaming to you through the magical powers of the internet, which is really, I would say, the Muggle compensation. Like, there's one point in the series where Arthur Weasley is like, I don't know. Oh no, it's Hagrid. Hagrid's like, I don't know how Muggles live without magic. This is how we do it with technology.
Yeah, I love that. That's very cool. Where will you be heading?
Yeah, I am currently magic time travel capabilities on my way to the Maldives, that island place you've seen on Instagram with the water bungalow things. I'm headed there for a work project unrelated to Harry Potter. Would be great if it were Harry Potter related, but I don't think they do Harry Potter stuff there. So
No, probably not. Although the reels for that would be fantastic. You could, say a spell, say a charm, and just like show something magical.
yeah, yeah. Hey, I did pack my wand. It's not sitting here next to me on the desk that I'm about to put it in my suitcase. Anyway, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Sean and I are preparing. Sean has decided to go to photography school next year, so he will be in Missoula from September
Cool.
to May. So he's like busy getting stuff in the house done, which is really actually hilarious things. Like he's making steps for the cat, for Oliver, our mascot here at the Glittering Bell Jar. He's making steps because we have a really tall loft, and so he's just making steps all over the apartment so he can just run and walk everywhere, which is his version of preparing for leaving. It's just making sure that
Wait, so
the
are
animals
you
are
are you
happy.
moving, or are you staying and he's going and you're staying with all the animals?
Right, so I'm staying, and he's just going to go for
Oh.
9 months because we got a bunch of furniture. We had so much stuff, and there's really no telling where he'll get a job after he gets done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or maybe he'll just come right back and want to start a business doing some kind of certain thing. Like there's just no telling, and I don't want to move somewhere where it's that cold. So
Fair
at
enough.
least, and not like move all our stuff and then go and then come right back in 9 months is really not that long of a time. So
Yeah. Also, I feel like it's funny that you say that when we were having just a few episodes ago, just like, oh, it's too hot. We need to move somewhere cold.
yeah, you can't win with me. Seattle runs me. I like it
Yeah. Yeah.
temperate.
Or London. That for me, that's London. I also love Seattle, which we've previously discussed in an episode as well. But yeah,
Mhm.
London is my city for that kind of weather.
Yes. So can't make us happy.
All right. Well, that's true. You can make us happy. Just let us talk about Harry Potter all day. Which brings me to, if this is your first time listening, thank you for joining us. Make sure you subscribe in your podcast player of choice. And just to give you a quick rundown of what's going to happen as we are reading the series backward, it would make a lot more sense if it's your first time listening if you go back and start at least episode 1 of this season. You could go back and start at episode 1 of season 1, which was Deathly Hallows, as Brie mentioned in the intro. But you will probably need to at least be starting at the beginning of the season since it is backward. It will not make a ton of sense since we do this time travel paradox where we reference previous episodes, which are future chapters in the book. So just listen to it all and then it'll make more sense. In each episode, if you decide to stick with us in this one, Brie will give us a synopsis of the chapter. I will read the last sentence, which is where we always start our reading, and then we will discuss. So without further ado, I'll let you take it away, Brie.
Cool. Chapter 7, The Slug Club. Back at the burrow, Harry is obsessing over what he saw Malfoy doing in Nocturne Alley. However, neither Ron or Hermione seem to think it is newsworthy. The next day, they are all escorted by ministry officials to King's Cross. Before boarding, he lets Mr. Weasley know what he saw at Borgin and Burke's and insists that he look into it, despite Mr. Weasley being unsure about the advice. Once on the train, Harry is left to fend for himself, as Ron and Hermione are prefects and therefore in charge. After being dismissed by Ginny, who was going to meet up with Dean, Harry finds a compartment with Luna and Neville. During lunch, Harry and Neville are invited to Slughorn's compartment, where he finds other students also there who are apparently well connected. After his lunch, he follows a Slytherin back into his compartment with Malfoy, where he hides under his invisibility cloak in the luggage compartment overhead. He hears Malfoy telling the others that he has moved on to bigger and better things, which is a job from Voldemort. The train arrives to Hogsmeade, where Malfoy stays behind to unveil Harry by cursing him, stamping on his nose, and leaving him behind on the train.
Yep. And the last sentence of this chapter is, taking care to tread on Harry's fingers, Malfoy left the compartment. Dun, dun, dun. If you don't know what happens next, go back and listen to the previous episode because we covered it in that one.
Yes.
Okay, where do you want to begin in this chapter? There is a lot in this one too. It's every episode.
Sure. Okay, so my tidbit is at the very beginning of the chapter, and it is, I'm just curious about Fleur, because reading from the back, you have Fleur's character arc, which we know that she is brave and she loves very strongly. She loves Bill. She doesn't care that his face is marred. She actually thinks it's cool. Like, oh, she thinks that means he's brave, and she's good looking for the both of them, which is my favorite quote. And now I'm looking and I'm reading, and I'm kind of wondering if Fleur is annoying. She was one of the things is she actually does talk about Tonks a little bit, and she says she's like, well, have you seen Tonks? She really should, kind of clean herself up. I'm like, oh, that's so rude. And she's even like looking at herself in the reflection of a spoon. And I was like, oh, she doesn't show people her depth. And that, I guess that makes sense. Or maybe I don't know, she grows some depth later. I don't know. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. I wonder if in some ways a Vila or a half Vila or a quarter Vila might get a little weird when they're in love. Like, people get weird around them. Like, they have a magic that makes people wonky around them. But maybe something also happens to them when they actually are in true love that makes her a little bit less nice. Like, I'll say, I mean, we haven't read Goblet of Fire in a while, but she's kind of like, she's not necessarily very vain, but she doesn't really have a lot of depth in Goblet of Fire. And then we don't really see a whole lot of her, and we're going to get more of her as we move further back into this book. But here, yes, she does seem quite vain. She's examining herself in a teaspoon. She's got a commentary on how everybody looks. But we know that she gets to be, I mean, as you were talking, I was thinking she's a Gryffindor. She's brave and she's loyal. She's very loyal to Bill. And I wonder if that's sort of her maturing. I mean, first of all, she's only 3 years older than Harry, Ron, and Hermione. So she's only 19, right? She's still a kid. And she's fallen in love, and love makes everybody weird. And when you're a Vila and you're in love, maybe it's like you're not only is she in love, she is receiving true love, and maybe that makes her like, it's not the kind of obsession that Vila normally get. It's like Bill actually loves her for her, so maybe it makes her vain. I don't know. I agree. She's not as well represented here as she is later in the book or even earlier in the series, and I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah. And maybe she's just nervous. She's hanging around with her, like, fiancés. Yeah, her in-laws. It's probably awkward. And she's used to people that probably care about. Right.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, she's like living with her future in-laws. Her future mother-in-law does not want her to marry the man she's going to marry. Her future sister-in-law, all the women are kind of threatened by her, is almost what it seems like. Like, she messes up all their plans, or she distracts all the men around them. Hermione and Ginny being the same way. And, maybe she just like has to insulate her ego by being like, no, I'm beautiful. Like, whatever. These people, who cares about them?
I mean, that's fair. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to keep reading because I do want to see maybe there's some more of that. Probably not till book 4, but I want to see more of that.
Yeah, it'll be a ways till we get much more Fleur.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I had actually was on basically that same page that you were on, which is page 132 of the Marie GrandPré versions. I just had a quick little fun image of the 2 grim-faced bearded Aurors in dark muggle suits, and I think of them like wearing black sunglasses. Like, couldn't be more conspicuously FBI, CIA types. I mean, that's not what they would be in the UK, obviously. They'd be MI6 or whatever. But like, they look incognito, and they're clearly like, you're clearly security guys. You're not blending in with anyone. Okay, like, nobody thinks you're dark muggle suits and dark sunglasses just standing there like, yeah. That's how I imagine them in my mind. It gave me a little chuckle. Yeah. And then the next thing that I had was about Harry in this chapter, we're kind of moving between what we know in the podcast and what we know if you've read the book in order, which is that Harry has information about Malfoy and he's trying to figure out what to do with this information. And he decides he's going to tell Mr. Weasley, which I think is a very cool trend that Harry does. He tells Mr. Weasley a lot of stuff. And we know that actually Mr. Weasley is probably the only adult who acts on the information that Harry gives him about Malfoy because he rids the Malfoy Manor. But he just I like the way it's described. Mr. Weasley was the right person, first because he worked at the ministry and was therefore in a position to make investigations. And second, he thought there was not too much risk of Mr. Weasley exploding in anger, which is really what he thinks will happen if he tells Mrs. Weasley that he and Ron and Hermione snuck off from the security detail of two highly conspicuous security guys while they were in Diagon Alley.
Yes. Yeah, that's literally a perfect segue because I wrote down Mr. Weasley, cool dad, ? Because
cool
he's a cool dad, which you tied that in beautifully because you said Miss Weasley would explode in anger, where Mr. Weasley has to literally be that exact opposite when you have George and Fred, which is he's like, I'm George and Fred's dad. Of course I saw you guys sneak off and I did wonder where you went, but he obviously knew enough not to say anything to Molly. And I want to know more about Mr. Weasley, and I hope we get to see more of that through that lens as we read, because he's just kind of portrayed as a little bit of a dork, a little bit like dense, maybe like it feels like Mrs. Weasley's maybe the smarter one, maybe a little more alert. And I would love for my mind to be changed about that.
I think that's an act. I think Arthur Weasley knows that life at home is much more peaceful when he lets Molly Weasley run the show. But also, I mean, one of my favorite Arthur Weasley lines in the movies is from Chamber of Secrets when they fly the Flying Fort Anglia back and he comes home for breakfast and he sits down with all the boys at the table. And Molly's like, your sons flew the car all the way to, London last night. And he goes, how did it go? Oh, that was very bad. He does have a different relationship with them than Molly does, obviously. And that even to Harry, with them as sort of proxy parents, that even Harry has gotten folded into that dynamic that they have with their children.
Yeah, that's very true. I love it. The next thing the next thing, it's just a cool little tidbit. The next thing I have is whenever Luna shows up on the train, it's page 137, but it is actually they are describing the picture, the famous picture of Luna Lovegood, which is she shows up with her Spectre spectacles and then her Quibbler magazine and her outfit, her crazy outfit that I actually wore for Halloween. And I was like, oh, there it is. That is the famous picture. It's probably one of the most, when you Google Luna Lovegood, it's the picture you see. You're at. No?
Is that from this book or is that from Order of the Phoenix?
No, here, I'll find it. I'm like, maybe it's on both?
In this book. I think the famous one is from the movies is in the Order of the Phoenix because she's there in her Spectre Specs and she lowers the magazine. Because at this point, Harry's just like, yep, Luna, Spectre Specs, Quibbler, got it. Like, he's not really fussed about it. He knows her.
No. It is this one because that's how she finds him, is because she has her Spectre spectacles on and sees energy flying around him.
She's not wearing them in Order of the Phoenix when they end up in the carriage with her?
Yes, I think
we'll have to wait and see.
Dang. Now I don't. Okay, yeah, we'll have to see. Okay,
because that's where they meet Loony Lovegood. I'm going to call her Loony because that's what they call her until Ginny corrects them. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Moving on. What do you got?
Yep. The last thing I have from this chapter is about Malfoy because that's sort of where the chapter ends. It's this interaction he's having with his fellow classmates in the carriage, and he's saying, I might not even be at Hogwarts, so what do I care if Slughorn likes me or not? And what I think is interesting is he does go back to Hogwarts. We know he goes back to Hogwarts in his 7th year, and I can't figure out why. Like, if he is being told at the beginning of his 6th year, or between 5th and 6th year, by Voldemort and the Death Eaters, his parents, you might not be going back to Hogwarts next year, after this year. Why do they send him back to Hogwarts in his 7th year? Is he accomplishing some mission there now? Or are they just getting him out of the way? It would seem to me that Voldemort will keep him at Malfoy Manor because he's basically a hostage and he keeps Lucius and Narcissa and Bellatrix in line.
My guess is because they aren't sure that he will be successful. And my guess is Voldemort especially does not think he will be successful. and that they would not be able to take over Hogwarts. And if they can't take over Hogwarts, then he can't go to school. But because Snape becomes headmaster, then he can go back to school. And I would assume Narcissa would be like, convince.
You're finishing your education, young man.
yeah. And then convince Voldemort somehow, like, oh, he can keep an eye on everything or keeps the, mudbloods in line or whatever.
He can report on Snape if he sees anything.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I will accept that.
Yeah. One more small thing. The Milda Vane is the one who asked Harry to join her compartment whenever he first gets on the train. And she actually kind of makes fun of Luna and Neville and says, like, if you don't want to hang out with them, you don't have to hang out with those people. And she is the one who slips him the love potion, who Ron ends up taking. But we love whenever, things kind of line up in the book. And there's that little Easter egg. She was obviously the only one brave enough to stand up amongst all the girls giggling. And she's the only brave enough one to poison him.
Yeah. I don't like her character. That's just me.
No, she's
I think
the worst.
She's nicer in the movies. If you watch the movie, she's not as nefarious as she is in the book. Yeah. But in the movie, there's the scene, and we haven't watched it as a writer. This is just the random knowledge I have stuffed in my brain. It's the scene where Hermione and Harry are in the library and Hermione's putting away books. And they're talking about, you need to invite someone to Slughorn's party. And then Romilda Vane is like waving at Harry across. And Hermione's like, she only wants to go out with you because she thinks you're the chosen one. And Harry goes, I am the chosen one. And then she whacks him with a book. That's a great scene between Harry and Hermione. Again, what we were talking about, I think it was last episode, where they have this great platonic sibling type relationship.
Yeah, no, I love it too. I agree. That's one of another favorite moment in the movies too.
Yeah.
So cool.
She doesn't seem anywhere near, the point there I was making is Romilda Vane doesn't seem anywhere near as terrifying as she is, where she's literally trying to poison Harry to make him fall in love with her, which is like Merope Gaunt type stuff. Like, yeah, not good.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. She's a monster and not nice.
Yeah, she should be in Slytherin. That's a Slytherin move. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. Sorting Hat got it wrong.
It does sometimes.
Yeah.
They sort too soon. Dumbledore even says it. I think we sort too soon.
Yeah. She hadn't grown into her evilness yet. Well, cool. Anything else?
That's all I had.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys for joining us on another episode. We are always grateful if you enjoyed this. Please head to your podcast player of choice. Give us a rating and a review, or just a rating. You can just put the little 5 stars. It only takes a couple seconds, just 1 through 5. Pick what you want. And then if you want to and you have the time, you can write something. But, for now, you can go in, put your 5 stars, and then later, if you want to, you can also write a review. Either way, it helps us, and we appreciate it. We also are on social media. Valerie, I'm going to let you take this over because you've just been smashing the social media game lately.
Yeah, thank you. I've been doing the reels. If you've been enjoying the reels, not all of them, most of them are me. The cover images, the really good cover images, those are all me. Yeah, you can find us at BellJarPod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We have been primarily focused on Instagram while we've been releasing new episodes because that's where most of our audience seems to be. But you can find us on those other platforms too. You can go on there. You can like things. You can follow us. You can also comment or send us a DM or check out our stories. Every day during this month, there's also been stories with the links to each day's new episode, so you don't have to remember. Though, don't forget, you need to subscribe. If you're a new listener, make sure you go into your podcast player and subscribe, because that's the best way to get new episodes. But if you forget to do that, we are sharing them over on social media as well. And yeah, that's one of the ways to get in touch with us in real time, if that's what you want to do.
Feel free to email us as well. podcast@followthebutterflies.com. Followthebutterflies.com is a Harry Potter website dedicated to all things Harry Potter by Valerie. You should check it out if you love Harry Potter, and you obviously do because you are here. So you will love it.
Yep. Yep, I've been checking that inbox now. So if you email me, I'll actually see it. There were no highly distressed listeners waiting for me to reply when I checked it most recently. But if you are feeling that way, please send us an email. And last but not least, if you are enjoying this and you want someone else to talk about it with, you need to share it with a friend. And this week, you should share it with somebody who
has dressed up as a Harry Potter character for Halloween.
Yep. Share it with somebody who's dressed up as a Harry Potter character for Halloween. As Bree said, that is a great idea.
Yeah.
I have done that. I did that
Same.
in high school. So you got a ways to go back in time before you find me not qualifying for that one.
Yep, same. Not high school, actually, but still.
Yeah, you didn't read it till after high school.
I know. Late bloomer. What can I say? All right. Well, we will see you next time.
See you in the next episode.